Yo, what is going on, guys? Flashverse here, and welcome back to another video on the Flash Season 8. And today's video will be a theory video going over how Barry could potentially save Joe West during Armageddon or post-Armageddon. Obviously, so far we are 2 episodes down with this Armageddon crossover, and we have 3 more episodes left, in which episode 1 was a pretty good way to kick off this crossover, but holy crap, episode 2 was insane. It was definitely the best Flash episode we have had in a long time. I would even go as far to say that this episode is probably even in my top 10 or probably top 5. It's probably in the top 5 for sure. It was insanely good. And we know things are about to get even crazier and crazier as we progress through these remaining 3 episodes. Obviously, we will get more twists and turns on the way, and we will get more mysteries being revealed, and Barry's day is only going to get worse and worse going forward. And yeah, I'm just really excited to see how everything comes to an end. But arguably one of the craziest reveals we've had on the show was none other than the death of Joe West. And this created a lot of mystery for the audience, which is something that I really like because we haven't had good mystery in a while on the show. And this got us questioning, is Joe actually dead? How did Joe die? Are we in an alternate reality with this Armageddon event? All of this is just so intriguing, and I cannot wait to see how it actually plays out. But before I go over anything, however, you guys don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you are aware of more Arrowverse content coming your way. Okay, so the biggest question everyone had after episode 2 was that, is Joe West actually dead? And the answer actually goes both ways. So far, yes, he is pretty much dead. And this is due to everyone living in this new timeline, if you will. Meaning someone has caused a massive timeline change, which resulted to Joe dying. Now, I do apologize because I have mentioned this theory a lot of times already, but it does link with what I'm trying to articulate over here. So there is more to the theory, but I will have to just reiterate to the theory I've previously mentioned because it does link with what I'm talking about. So yeah, I do apologize if you guys have already heard me say this before in like a previous video, because this theory does actually make sense and it does explain how Joe could end up coming back. Obviously, if you're new around the channel, then this would probably be like the first time you're hearing this theory. So yeah, the theory I have mentioned many times is that one thing we have established during episode 2 is that Barry does not remember certain things which other characters from Team Flash have done, and they would remember something different. These include things like attacking the loft when the Flash and Zotar first fought each other, and Barry supposedly gave a eulogy at Joe's funeral, as well as Joe's death. Barry doesn't remember any of that. Everyone from Team Flash, however, remembers these things happening, but Barry himself has no memories of anything like this happening ever, including the audience. We have no memory of any of this happening either. Now, the reason Barry doesn't remember anything that happened is because this is simply a new timeline which has been set. That meaning that someone has obviously changed the timeline throughout the show, and they've done this by time traveling to the past and altering what's already been set. Now, the reason why this makes sense is because, as we know, when a speedster changes the timeline, for example Flashpoint, the whole timeline is rewritten, changing the memories of every non-speedster around. So in the case of Flashpoint, Wally has always been the Flash since the very beginning. Iris and Barry never grew up with each other because Nora Allen has survived and Henrietta never went to prison. Cisco became a billionaire and he's no longer this nerdy tech guy. Caitlin is now an eye doctor, not a Star Labs doctor, if you will. And all of them had no memories of the previous timeline. Team Flash didn't even exist. These guys were just living their new lives like it was their lives all along, when in reality it wasn't. They used to be Team Flash members and they all had different occupations. And in the case of Barry and Iris, they grew up with each other because Nora Allen died and Henry Allen went to prison. However, in the case of the speedsters, that being Barry and Eobard Thawne, aka the Reverse Flash, they on the other hand remembered everything in the previous timeline, but do not have any trace of memories in this new timeline, because technically speaking, they never lived in this new timeline. They're just simply time travelers and they've altered with the timeline. That's it. And this theory does actually make sense because in this Armageddon timeline, Joe has supposedly died 6 months ago. But 6 months ago from the Flash Season 8 is actually the Flash Season 7 finale. It's probably even before, if I'm being honest. I don't know, that's just what I remember. But it's around the times of the Flash Season 7 finale. And Barry knows that Joe is alive, because as the audience we saw Joe alive, and Barry has seen Joe alive in the vow renewal and various other scenes they've had during the Flash season 7, during the back half of the Flash season 7, of course. But he doesn't remember Joe dying. Barry doesn't remember that happening, meaning someone has been pulling the strings and has been messing with the timeline, and my theory is that it's actually Eobard Thawne, aka the Reverse Flash, who's doing all of this. Now, obviously, we're yet to see Reverse Flash. Reverse Flash will be appearing during episode 4 of this Armageddon event, but maybe in an alternate timeline, or maybe in the future, Reverse Flash may have taken over the body of Barry Allen. And we'll just say Future Flash because that makes more sense than an alternate timeline. So maybe Reverse Flash took over the body of Barry Allen, and the way this could actually work is that there would essentially be two Barrys in 2021, or in Armageddon. Reverse Barry and then our Barry. And here's how Barry may not remember these past events taking place. So let's take the scene where Barry fights Zotar, for example. When we followed Barry during those scenes, he simply defeats Zotar with that lightning blast, cuffs her up, and then goes to Chester's garage. And that's it. That's all we've seen Barry do. And then Reverse Barry from the future would know what Barry does then. And he would see that Barry defeats Zotar, and then he goes to Chester's garage. This is when Reverse Barry goes out in Central City and causes chaos. That's when we see the news happening where the Flash attacks the city. That would be Reverse Flash disguised as Barry doing that. This would make sense because A, we have never seen Barry do anything besides perform a lightning blast on Zotar and then go straight to Chester's garage. And B, Barry would have been way too stressed, and this includes Team Flash as well. They would have been way too stressed to a point where they couldn't focus on anything else, because Barry would have just found out that Joe died and he would have been absorbing the shock of that, and Team Flash would have been trying to figure out what's happening with Barry. So essentially, Barry would not have remembered causing chaos across the city because he's never done it in the first place. Someone has time traveled, in which I'm guessing that it's Eobard Thawne, aka the Reverse Flash, but they would have time traveled and altered with the timeline so that after Barry defeats Zotar, it looks like the Flash just goes around the city and starts hurting people and throwing lightning at citizens and like cars and stuff, but in reality Barry doesn't do that. It would just be a time traveler waiting for Barry not to be around, and that time travel would enter the city disguised as the Flash, and then they would attack the city. That's what Eobard Thawne is doing. And the same thing goes for Joe's death as well. We know that the Flash season 8 takes place 6 months after the Flash season 7. Everything seemed normal at first for the Flash season 8 episode 1. Like, everything Barry did seemed so normal except for like the Armageddon stuff with Despero. So we could assume that everything was going normal at first. The kids went to the future, Barry and Iris are in a good place, and various other things like that. And there have been no timeline changes or anything like that. But that someone, which I'm guessing is Eobard Thawne, aka the Reverse Flash, would have time traveled to the Flash season 7 finale, killed Joe, and could have run back to the future to get revenge on Barry after what Barry did to him during the Flash season 7 finale. Therefore rewriting the timeline for every non-speedster around, which is why they would think that Joe is dead, but Barry as a speedster in tune with the Speed Force would not have been rewritten. He would still have the same memories of the timeline prior to Joe's death, which is why he would not remember certain things like giving a eulogy at Joe's funeral, because technically speaking, Barry is never given a eulogy at Joe's funeral because Joe was alive in the real timeline. So the reason Joe is dead is due to time travel. But realistically, no, Joe is not dead. But in this timeline, in the Armageddon timeline, Joe is dead. Also, we do know that Jesse L. Martin has signed up for a series regular for the Flash season 8, so although he is dead as of Armageddon, we do know that he will be back eventually. Now, since Joe is dead for now, and we know that he will be back eventually, we do know that Barry will have to do something to eventually save Joe. He could possibly time travel to the past and save Joe, which would not be very ideal because that would create another Flashpoint, and then that would also like change the timeline. But what is possible is that Barry could possibly end up fixing everything which has been changed in Armageddon in some way which it doesn't disrupt the timeline. So he would fix up this alternate timeline and essentially find a way to shift everything back to its original. Now, this doesn't mean that Armageddon will be erased entirely, and I could be contradicting what I'm saying over here, but we do know that the back half of the season does play a huge link to Armageddon, so we will be getting big repercussions in Armageddon, which will span throughout the back half of the season. So we know that we will be getting more timeline changes taking place due to Armageddon, but also some things established in Armageddon will also stay. And that is the case because Barry still has the gold boots, for example. He gets them during the Flash Season 8 Episode 5, which is in Armageddon, but he still has them for the back half of the season. So we do know that some of these things will still stay as normal. So despite some things possibly being reset back to the normal timeline, we will be having some timeline changes due to the events of Armageddon as well. So technically speaking, we will be in another Flashpoint after episode 5, with obviously Joe West coming back. So although he's dead for now, Joe West will not be dead after Armageddon. He will be back alive. But yeah guys, thanks for watching. If you guys have enjoyed the video, please give a like and subscribe. Be sure to tell me in the comment section down below how you guys think Joe West comes back to life. I'm interested to see all of your thoughts towards all of this as well. And yeah, I will see you guys in my next video.